Any comments?
Well, I had a neighbor call me. She thought I called her, but I didn't. And she went on and on about political things and the president. And so it was like, okay, I caught myself thinking, okay, I could go down that path and just embellish her story and agree with her and all that. And I just, you know, I was very, I guess, equal about, you know, how I portrayed what I did. I didn't want to, I wanted to come as though if I were a deity, I would not be hurting another person. I would not be downplaying. So I thought about that prior to even responding. So I thought, oh, okay, like if I looked at more things that way, I may not react in the situation.
Right, fantastic, interesting. And think about it as well. So if you're a deity, and I like to think of Lama Zopa Rinpoche a lot, like when I'm stuck in a situation, something happens, or a student comes to me with something, some really tragic something, and then I have this like, what would Rinpoche do? What would Rinpoche say right now? What would, and I'm not an enlightened being, but I've also thought of Rinpoche and seen Rinpoche with all of us students. And I see people pulling on him and, oh, Rinpoche, this has happened, and how he responds. And, you know, he'll have empathy, but from a balanced place, how he's kind of got this bigger view, the spaciousness always remains there. Spaciousness doesn't leave. So I always try to come back to like, okay, how would Rinpoche come when we come with our drama and all of our stories and things that are so massive to us, you know, such a massive thing because we're so caught up in the I. Anybody else have
I had a real
any? Yep.
No, go first. Go first.
Okay. I keep questioning because why do I want to become a deity? Because when you can do everything in your own, on your own, who you are right now, and you can acquire some qualities, but I don't want to be a deity that I have to be in a temple or like, you know, you don't have so much, maybe you have in spiritual, but then physically you don't have that. I don't know. That's how I've been thinking. Why do I want to become deity? I'm fine myself.
Okay, so Naga, I would ask you, the deity is somewhat symbolic, even though you can manifest an enlightened consciousness that way. Okay, so as you are yourself, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you, but when your family and friends come to you with problems, do you know the exact perfect thing, the exact perfect way to advise them?
I just called and yelled at my family member in India in my break.
What did you do?
I just called one of my niece, because she's posting these pictures that I feel it's not right for her. And then I kept telling her, don't do it. It's not our family thing. And then I finally just yelled at her.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying is if you feel comfortable with all of your activities of your body, speech, and mind, and do you feel comfortable now with all your activities of your body, speech, and mind?
Yes, absolutely. Because
you feel absolutely comfortable in everything you're doing.
Yes.
Is in perfect agreement with.
Yes, absolutely. But I just maybe I'm not perfect in accomplishing everything I want to do. I still failed my exams, or I still don't have the perfect life that everybody has, or, you know, in finance or health. But I still feel I have come to a place where I'm confident in whatever I'm doing. I'm here with where I want it to be. So I have to do more. So in a way.
Okay. So I'm not getting a clear answer, but it's more like you have some limitations, correct or no?
Yes, through my physical body.
What if you had no limitations?
I would be doing more work for the world.
Okay, so that's what a Buddha does. That's the omniscient consciousness, has no limitations and operates from that perfect state of body, speech, and mind every moment. So again, if any of you feel aligned with that and you feel like you're there, fantastic. I totally rejoice. But let's be honest with ourselves, okay? But you know, if you feel that way and you are manifesting that every moment, absolutely perfect, fantastic. That's the role of our path. That is what we're moving along on this path, and Tantra happens to be the quickest way to get there because of how the most subtle consciousness meditates on emptiness, how it's merged with that, simultaneously meditating on that, which is different than sutra. We're going to talk about that later. But again, so Naga, if that's how you feel, fantastic. I wouldn't even say you need any teachings. You do get to a point on the path where you're, what they say, the path of no more learning, where you're synthesized with enlightenment. So great.
I was feeling that yesterday. This was my thing. I've been always wanted to, but I've been studying with a lot of teachers for long though. So it's not now. But I feel like thank you for this class so much. I feel like, wow, this is what it is. It clearly explains. So that's what I want to say.
And also you could look at this. There are some readings you might want to look at in the course, some readings that talk about Hinduism and Buddhism, I think in some of the reading materials for this course. So that way you'll get a deeper understanding.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate
Okay.
this.
Here's the thing for everybody is I honestly haven't found in any other tradition, any other religion, I haven't found anything like emptiness. So for me now, you know, in the esoteric sides of all these religions, Sufism, Kabbalah, the esoteric side of Judaism, the Shekhinah concept, there's certain ideas very similar to emptiness, but they always seem to be affirming something, meaning there is something inherently existent there. Right. And the highest school, Prasangika Madhyamika, of Buddhism, that philosophical school, I find, refutes it all to what actually does exist, according to that school, okay, is a mere imputation, is the mind labeling on a valid basis of designation. So again, you don't need to become Buddhist, but please check your own spiritualities and your own religions and belief systems to see if there's something they're affirming. Mostly it rolls around the sense of the I, and it is that sense that gets us into trouble. That strong, concrete, reified sense of ourselves and everything around us. So if you find something that negates that in the way emptiness does with inherent nature, that it lacks inherent nature, it's empty of that. That's what we mean by emptiness. It lacks, it has an absence of inherent nature or intrinsic value. That's what we mean. I haven't found it explained as thoroughly or anything that gets close to it in other religions and spiritualities. So please check up on that. And so this is a perfect time right now. Once again, we've come back from a break, and this could be any time in your daily activities, okay? Like tomorrow, a lot of you are going to be working. Whatever you have, and you take a break, but whatever you're moving through your activities again, how's my motivation? How's my motivation? This is a perfect time to pull that motivation back together and reestablish. So just for a moment, closing your eyes lightly. And just reestablish that motivation. That once again, we're trying to fully wake up, to become Buddhas, to reach enlightenment, however you want to call it like that. Why? To benefit all living beings perfectly, unlimitedly, fully empowered to do that. That's why we're going to talk again. And you can use that, let that motor you through the rest of all the activities of your day. Thank you. And Jennifer, can we mute everybody's mics? There's one mic I couldn't mute and there's some sound coming. Thank you. For some reason, thank you so much. Thank you for all the wonderful hosting and help. So I've posted in the chat, for those of you that can see, there's an archive.org, and it was from Light of the Path, which you see LOP Kadampa Center, because Kadampa Center is the one that hosts that. This is from 2017. This is a meditation on emptiness. So you can try that as well. I would highly recommend in conjunction with the Emptiness Meditation and How to Meditate, which I keep mentioning by Kathleen McDonald. She's our longest term nun in our tradition, Venerable Sangye Kadro. But that's one I led. And again, please, you can't see it. It's right in the chat. So I'm not sure why you can't see that. Let's see if I can repost it. Okay, can you see that? Okay. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche on the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive I posted. There you go. Again, keep soaking your mind. You know, there's so many emptiness teachings from Rinpoche. It's one of the things he focuses mostly on, because this is so important, okay? And over, you start, you know, Rinpoche teaches every 10 years or so, he changes how he teaches it. It's the same teaching, but he uses different things. It used to be for years, he would use a table because the table was the first thing in front of him. He'd always have a table in front of him with his text on it. So he would analyze the table from the viewpoint of emptiness. Okay, and then he started working on the I, your I that appears. Again, this is your sense of yourself. And then Rinpoche uses the words decorated by your ignorance. Think about that. The I is decorated by my ignorance. Like, because my ignorance doesn't allow me to see it accurately. Okay, why is the ignorance there? Where did the ignorance come from? There's no beginning in our mind, according to Tibetan Buddhism. Where does it come from? Previous moments of the ignorance in our mind. That's all. Previous moments of ignorance in our mind. Previous moments of misunderstanding or misknowing. K-N-O-W. You misknow reality. And that leaves an imprint and a familiarization in my mind. And then because of that misknowing, I turn up in a culture, okay, that reifies everything, concretizes everything. My car, my house, my kid, my computer, my meeting, my agenda, myself. And everybody you meet goes along like that. So, you know, as I mentioned before, in a parking lot, your car gets dinged. Somebody opens their door into your car in a parking lot, and you're coming back with your packages and you see this happen. What's your response? Naga, how are you going to deal with that? You see somebody dent your car. You okay with that?
I had several accidents.
Oh, I'm sorry.
People just randomly hitting me. And then I was disabled and my health got affected. But
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I still struggle with those, I think, effects.
But how does your mind deal with that? Initially, you see them opening the door into your car. What's your mind doing with that?
I think the person came and apologized once, and some people just ran away. I felt like I didn't have anger with them at all. That was years ago, but I didn't even know Buddhism at that time. I was a yogi practice. I didn't have anger with them, but then when it came to financial, they kept not paying what they promised. I actually took them to court by myself. There was no lawyer.
Right.
Like it was.
How's your mind? I'm asking specifically, how's your mind? Peaceful? Okay with it all? Okay.
Peaceful.
Yeah. During the court, during the suit, the lawsuit?
Yeah, I was peaceful, and I think somebody was saying that just we forgive everything, but we don't have, when you have to bring the truth to them, I think you can also bring the truth without being angry.
Yep. Yeah. But you sometimes wonder, is a lawsuit peaceful? To think of suing somebody, doesn't feel it. But again, the main part is to notice, and it's great if you are peaceful, fantastic, is just to notice and notice the way, and I've been affected, and I notice how other people affect me over the years, especially when we were younger. We were very affected by that, some of us, right? But the thing is, you tend to respond how somebody else will respond. I'm around a lot of non-Buddhists right now, okay, including my family. I just noticed their responses to something. For instance, I'm driving with somebody, I'm in the back seat, they're driving. They're a little bit of an aggressive driver, and I'm noticing, so somebody turns in front of them, but they're going too fast, I think. I'm imputing that on them. They're going a little bit too fast around the corner. So if somebody gets in front of you and you have to hit your brakes because you're going too fast, this person gets annoyed all the time when they're driving. I've seen them, and they're so torn up. So what it does is, if I'm one of their kids raised like that, being driven by them all the time, I grow up and learn aggressive driving, and that when somebody cuts me off like that, I'm not kind, and I can give them the finger and yell at them and curse, right? So if you're a Buddhist driving and you're raised by a Buddhist parent driving, you may drive a little bit more compassionately. And if you drive even a couple miles an hour slower, you're able to kind of have a little bit more of a look around. And you see this person careening around the corner. What that tells me now, after some practice, what that tells me is they're in a hurry. Let me let them go. My mind undisturbed. I don't have to slam on my brakes. I don't have to think about giving them the finger or having a negative thought about them or response. I go, some people are in a hurry. I don't know the scene in their car. Maybe they're rushing somebody who's about to deliver a baby to the hospital, and I don't know, but we might impute something negative based on influences on our mind of negativity. I don't know their story. I'm not in the car. I can let them go. And it's 2 seconds and I'm okay. I'm okay. They're okay because they're not having some little tension thing where I should have slowed down and let them go. You've seen people and then they give you the finger. I don't need to inspire that in them as well. Bigger space to try to take care of them. So slowly you learn, and when you're around monasteries and nunneries of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, I find predominantly, when you're around all that, when I'm in my sea of maroon with all my monastic sisters and brothers, right? That's all we're talking about. We're often talking about emptiness in our breaks. We're having dinner talking about emptiness and the teachings. And so you get soaked in that. You get soaked in that. So think about the influences around you. What can contribute to you talking more about the Dharma and staying in that peaceful place with your mind? I know for everybody it's not possible. Okay, so slowly keep working on it like that. Slowly. And then we try our best. So I can't seem to mute people. Jennifer, can you give me the way that I can, is that possible? Thanks, because if you can just mute, okay, thank you. Thanks so much. So the other thing I wanted to mention is in this process of, something I was just thinking about monastics. Okay, but something to think about those influences, that to turn your mind more and more so that it's not just a little exercise at a 2-hour break time, but through your day, you're building this through your Dharma study and your practice and reading and attending, as many classes as you can. And it's great online because we've got people here we can see from all places. So if you see some talk going on in Asia or Germany or Australia, you might be able to participate if the time works. Like that's, we try our best, okay? So again, we do get influences. That door opens into your car, and I was trained from my parents when that happened to yell at the other person. My parents weren't bad people, but that's kind of look at our culture, the American culture, and we're not all from America, but in the United States, there's a little bit of there's certainly a bit of an aggressive vibe right now happening, dictated from the highest position of office right now, which you see the effects it's having, okay? So slowly, we can dismantle this in our own minds and not get caught up in it. We can try to do that like that. So So it's very tricky. And again, it wasn't, my parents were very good people, but that's what they learned from their parents, is that you get back. I really have trouble in this country with the worship of American football. The worship of American football. I don't really understand it. It wasn't the biggest sport years ago, but it's an extremely aggressive, violent sport. And it's worshipped in most of the places. Now, I noticed when I'm living at Buddhist centers and more immersed in Buddhist organizations in the States, most of those people are not fans of American football and don't follow or watch it. And I never knew what was going on. But I'm not around Buddhists now, and a number of people around me are huge football fans. So there's a lot of discussion about it, which, I find really tiring. Okay, but mostly because it's very violent. It's just very violent. And even the people I know fans, my brother was, there was something where I stopped by his house last year and he had the game on. And I stopped in for 5 minutes and, I know how football's played. So I stopped as a bonding thing to watch. I sat down to watch like 15 minutes with him. We're watching, and in the middle of the 15 minutes, there was an incredibly violent play where a guy was injured. And you saw him like his back going back over the guy in the row. It was just horrible. And he was knocked out on the field. And I looked and I could see immediately when it happened, my brother winced. Like he who likes football. And then he turned to me and he just shook his head like this. And he said, so violent. So that's a culture in the United States and people we're going to, and the whole speak about it. We're going to get them. We're going to cream them. So this goes into your cells. And I feel sad in a way for the United States, how it's kind of imploding. And, so we can do things about it. I think our Buddhist practice creates that pocket of peace here. We're doing this right now, and it's going out from wherever you are, in whatever room you're in, apartment, home, neighborhood, that's going out. Those bubbles are going out. Okay. One last thing from Naga. If people hit you, well, it's the same thing, Naga. So if somebody hits you at a stop sign, if you're in an accident, which happens, right? And you could even take it down a few notches. New York City, we all know in Manhattan how crowded it can be. Not as much during COVID on the streets, but I've been in a store in Manhattan, Trader Joe's, if you're familiar with this chain store. It's a big store. I've gone in, very crowded before COVID, very crowded store. Right? People bump into you. So am I going to turn and be like, hey, jerk? Some people respond that way. On the subway, you're bumped into. Some people, you notice, some people are hostile. Some people are very gentle. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So sorry. Nobody means to bump into you intentionally. Some people are doing it intentionally, but car accidents rarely are people intentionally trying to bash you from their car into your car. So again, if you get hit in your car, you're in a car accident, we have to think about karma. As Buddhists, we have to think about karma. Oh my goodness, this is so unfortunate, okay? Maybe the first thing that arises in your mind is bodhicitta. What about the other person? Oh my goodness, what about the other person? I hope I didn't harm anybody. I hope nobody's injured. That would be a great bubble to have arising, okay? Second thing may be karma. Wow, this is really unfortunate. This sucks. I'm in pain. I'm injured. I'm bleeding, whatever. This is definitely a negative seed arising if I'm not happy with this. Nobody's really happy in a car accident, okay? But if a high level realization, you might say, how wonderful and purifying, okay? But that's a high level being. That's not most of us, okay? So at least remember karma, okay? Meaning I must have created the seed, I must have created the cause for this to happen to me right now. It's in my mind, Buddhism says. It's only in my mind, it's not the other person. They are a condition for it to happen. Yes, they are an external condition for it to happen, but the cause is in my mind. So for me to get out of my car and blame them, they may even have been at fault and run the stop sign. That's unfortunate, but the cause of experiencing the result of that is in my mind. So what I could do is look at the situation and make sure practically you engage. First of all, if they're injured, if you're injured, if you can reach your phone and call 911, get people to help you, get the ambulance, whatever you need. And if you're both well and okay to get out of the car, you exchange information, but you do it in a nice way. Are you okay? Can we change our information? And then obviously practically you get the insurance companies involved and you follow your reports and they determine. And if you really feel that the person is ornery and fighting you and not going to pay up and not going to do this, first of all, the insurance companies will tend to decide what's going to happen. And it could make your rates go up. And there's all that unfortunate thing. Again, the cause is in your mind. There's no inherently existent other person that hit you out there. They don't exist like that at all. What is there is a mere imputation labeled on a body and mind of this other person that is causing me to be in this situation with them right now because of negative deeds I have done with my body, speech, or mind in this life or past lives that cause me to be in this situation right now. My mind simply merely labeling or imputing on their configuration of body and mind and that car, that person, or that car, or accident. And then you can decide later if something's not being paid and you're not getting enough, and you decide to want to go down that route of the lawsuit, that's something you can decide from, but trying to maintain as much of an open heart and a realistic view. Okay, I want to go on to talk about Om Mani Padme Hum for a minute. When we recite mantra, what is that about? Okay, just want to explain a little bit more. For instance, one mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. So the mantra begins with Om. That usually occurs at the beginning of most mantras, okay? This syllable is in itself a mantra, okay? And it's also regarded by Hindu practitioners as a primordial sound of creation, out of which all other sounds emerge. So we generally write Om in the Western language, English language, as OM, to write that syllable. But in the original Sanskrit, it's made up of 3 elements. And this is reflected in some old traditions from Sanskrit in which it might have actually been written as AUM instead of OM, okay? The syllable Om does not have a literal translation, but the 3 elements that make it up serve, according to this interpretation, to symbolize the 3 doors of body, speech, and mind, okay? Both the presently impure doors of the practitioner and the pure exalted doors of the enlightened ones. So kind of merge there, okay? Going to the end of the mantra. And so in a sense, you'll sometimes hear people, and especially those skilled in languages of Tibetan and Sanskrit, Om. So it's not just Om, the way we talk in English. It's a deeper, resonant, kind of mixing those 3 elements of body, speech, and mind, and it gives you a little bit more time to consider that when you're saying Om. There's a lot of yoga now in the States, they chant it, but I don't think people understand the resonance of it, okay? When you go to the end of the mantra, Hung is at the end, and the Hung is spelled 2 ways. We spell it in English, H-U-M or H-U-N-G, doesn't matter, both the same Sanskrit syllable, Hung, okay? Which also lacks a literal meaning, but is made up of 5 elements, okay? Symbolizing what's known as the 5 Buddha families. So I gave Jennifer, as I mentioned yesterday, I gave Jennifer a little chart that shows you the 5 Buddha families, and it also has what wisdoms they represent, what delusions they counteract, the colors they're normally found in, all the different things they kind of represent, which I found helpful to understand. What do you mean by the 5 Buddha families? In Tantra, we're often using those colors for various things. And basically it relates to that chart and the delusions that are undone, subdued, and the wisdoms that are realized and things like that. So that Hong on the end is a connection to those 5 Buddha families. These 5 represent the enlightened transformation of the 5 aggregates into which our body-mind complex is traditionally divided. So again, some of us know the body makes up the form aggregate. There's 1 form aggregate, our body, and there's 4 mental aggregates that make up our mind. And that'll also be listed in that small chart. So again, we have the form aggregate as our body, that's pretty obvious, and then 4 mental aggregates that make up our mind, which are feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness, okay? So let me talk a little bit just quickly. I'm not going to go heavily into this, but feeling is not emotion. Feeling is simply the way we first start encountering things, pain, pleasure, or neutral. That's in our mind, how our mind first encounters things, pain, pleasure, neutral. And then there's a little bit more of a recognition, which I would also call, in other words, discriminatory awareness, further discerning what the pain, pleasure, or neutral is. We recognize things. We have that aggregate of recognition in our mind. Okay, then there's, I'm going to skip first to consciousness, which is moments of mind, moments of consciousness. There's a present moment that's also made up of a beginning, middle, and end. Then there's the next moment of mind. And oh, now that's the present moment. And each moment of mind is preceded by a moment that caused it. And each present moment is the result of the preceding moment. So there's always a cause and effect relationship to our consciousness, our mind, I'm using those as synonyms, which indicates there's no beginning to the mind and no end to the mind. There will always be a subsequent cause, a preceding cause. There will always be a subsequent result. Compositional factors, the last aggregate of the mind, the mental aggregates, is everything left over that's not included in the other ones. Things like memory, hate, love, things like that. So upon the attainment of enlightenment, these 5 aggregates are transformed into the Buddhas of the 5 families. And their associated delusions that you'll find in the chart are replaced by the 5 primordial wisdoms that you'll find in the chart. Okay, and these are topics you can go into in more depth, things like that. And there's a number of books. I think John Landau has a book, Images of Enlightenment, that has tables about, again, like my chart. So I found the chart super easy, and I refer to it for certain things. Now, going back to Om Mani Padme Hum, there's another simple way to explain the symbolic relationship between Hung and the enlightened experience. This syllable, Hung, is the seed from which, of the 5 Buddha families, Akshobhya is visualized. That's his seed syllable, Hung. Akshobhya, as his name suggests, is called the immovable one. This attribute of immovability, in a sense, of being beyond disturbing influences. Beyond disturbing influences. You can't move him from that. Okay, indicates the indivisibility of method and wisdom, which we're going to talk about a little at the end of this session. The indivisibility, I talked a little bit yesterday, of method and wisdom. That's a characteristic of enlightenment. So however we look at it, Hung represents the ultimate goal of our practice, the attainment of all the qualities of enlightenment. So it's kind of neat that we're kind of saying in the beginning of the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, that my activities of my body, speech, and mind, and then I'm moving through to get to, this is my ultimate attainment, is my ultimate enlightenment at the end of the mantra, Hung. Okay. And then if you want to go into Mani, Padme, Mani is jewel. Padme, sometimes the Tibetans pronounce Peme, is lotus. Lotus. And sometimes I think on one level, on Mani Padme Hum, you could say the all of the universe is like a jewel in the lotus of my heart. But these mantras have significance on many different levels. So that's just one. Sometimes I'll talk to early, new Buddhists, people that aren't even Buddhists, like that. So the jewel in the lotus, they'll sometimes mention as this mantra, but it's the mantra of the Buddha of compassion. Okay. And okay, let's talk about the jewel, Mani. In ancient Indian mythology, Mani is like sought after treasure known as a wish fulfilling gem. We hear that in Buddhism as well, the wish fulfilling gem. It's said whoever gains possession of this gem will have all his, her, or their wishes fulfilled effortlessly. That sounds great. Okay. And while our temporal wishes may be for wealth and power and things like that, the deepest wish really is for happiness, deep happiness. But the bigger wish on the Mahayana path is for all beings to be happy. For all beings to be happy and to be separated from suffering. So because compassion is what compels us to treat others' suffering as if it were our own, to develop that empathy, right, and to work to alleviate their suffering, we could say that our compassionate attitude is really the true wish-granting, wish-fulfilling gem. The gem of universal compassion not only grants others' wishes spontaneously, but it does so unconditionally. Doesn't matter if they harm you or help you. That's the space you want to get to. That's the Buddha mind. Okay, the wish for others to be separated from their suffering and the causes of suffering is really, we'd say, compassion. Okay, compassion, the essence of that part of our path is known as method. That's our method, our skillful means. Okay, so again, this path to enlightenment we know is made up of two parts. We've got method and wisdom. We've been discussing that. So this phrase, in a sense, Mani Padme, the jewel in the lotus, signifies this union of method and wisdom. The jewel, Mani, standing for method, as we mentioned before, that wish-fulfilling gem of compassion. The lotus standing for wisdom. And I just wanted to, let me just go back to, yeah. And the lotus stands for wisdom. In a way, as I mentioned before, the lotus rises unstained from the swamp, from the muck of the swamp, is an appropriate symbol for renunciation. Again, I mentioned the firm resolve to get out of samsara. Okay. The lotus is also widely used to symbolize compassion as well. The career of a bodhisattva, you might say, bringing beings to enlightenment, getting to enlightenment for the sake of others. And Chenrezig himself holds the stem of a lotus. The Buddha of infinite compassion holds the stem of a lotus in his left hand to symbolize that compassion. Okay. So then you kind of say, well, how did it get to being symbolized wisdom? Okay. So usually our mind's under the influence of ignorance and various delusions. And as a result, we suffer. And then we see these as kind of elaborations, hallucinations about this. And I would say that we superimpose upon them qualities they don't really possess. We reify again. We apply concreteness to things, a sense that they are independent of causes and conditions or parts, or the mind labeling on a valid basis of designation. So I'm saying they inherently exist. That's how we start imputing everything that we see. Okay, but these don't really, this isn't the true nature of things. Okay, so this understanding that reality is free of these elaborations, unstained by that. That's why the lotus arises from the swamp unstained. So that's why here they're using it in this particular phrase or mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, as the symbol of wisdom. like that. And they're so intertwined, the wisdom and compassion, on a way, because the more you start to study emptiness, read about emptiness and meditate on it, you start to see how people suffer because they're imputing this concrete nature on everything, especially themselves. And you see how it causes the suffering. So then your compassion starts generating more. You know, and honestly, when I mentioned the meditation I led for a friend about, and my sister about our president, you can hold him to be inherently existent, terrible, evil, whatever you call it, like that, if you don't like him. Some people like him. That's why he's not inherently existent, good or bad. But if you're holding him that way, and this person was struggling with that, and when you start to realize he's as lost as we are, unless you have a direct perception of emptiness, you're seeing everything in a mistaken way, and you're responding and reacting from there, okay? But a lot of us on a Buddhist path are doing it, let's hope, a little more gently, okay? And the only reason he's in the situation he's in, where it seems like more of a target and doing some things that some people really question, right? He might have more obscurations, more veils to his Buddha nature. So how can you not have compassion in some ways? Right? Like, does it appear that he's harming and doing all these things? People that are really lost, I might even say the white supremacists I'm not comfortable with, racists, people who abuse people, children or women or whomever, people who harm people, the police who are killing, the white police who are killing African Americans in the United States. I can label all of them bad and evil and stupid and ignorant. That doesn't do anything. It just makes my mind less peaceful. But if I realize, wow, they really have some obscurations. I also have obscurations. Let me share a common thread with them. That lends harmony on the planet. Okay? Meaning, I'm not like them. I'm not going to kill somebody. I'm not going to yell some racist remark at somebody. I'm going to try not to. Okay? But the thing is, we have a common thread in that we're both obscured. We're both kind of lost in different ways, but we're both basically, and if I'm lost as well, my view might not be completely accurate. So I'm only viewing the white supremacists from one view, but I don't realize what a good dad they might be or a good mother. Okay, there's a whole person there that we don't get to see based on the three poisons that you don't see. You like these people, you don't like these people. So all I'm saying is give yourself some more spaciousness here in the heart, because it makes you more peaceful. They won't know anything what you're doing. You don't even know who these people are. You see them in the news. It makes you more peaceful to do the important work you need to do. And then you want to act from there. I don't want to act from hostility and hatred and attachment and fear and jealousy and pride and depression and anxiety. That has me reacting. I want to act from bodhicitta. Then you do all the work you want to do, and you sign up. You want to work for this nonprofit or volunteer for this group or help the homeless guy in the street, you know, or smile to the racist once in a while and just peaceful from a peaceful mind. It's not about me changing their mind. I can't do that. I can change my mind. Change your mind enough, I get myself out of samsara. I get myself out of the way of everybody else, and I reach that enlightened space, and now I can really help. Am I communicating? Is it making sense? Okay, so this is how we want to break it down also into everyday life, because this is what's going on. If you're in the States right now, this is what's going on. Some of you are not in the States, but you're still dealing with the duality of everyday life like that. And we're not around a lot of Buddhist communities. Jennifer, question?
Yes, thank you. This is very helpful. Thank you. I had a question regarding the exercise we were doing before we broke for lunch, which is seeing everyone as dakas and dakinis. And then on the other side, recognizing the commonly shared delusions. And when do we practice what, and how do we integrate the two?
Sure, thank you. Wait, I just realized okay. maybe easier to see me now. There we go. It's great question to figure out the differences is we're doing a little bit of each of those in our practices at times. So I find it helpful going out there in the world. I took a walk yesterday and everyone, and first of all, I had that practice in the morning, the method, for transforming a suffering life. So there was my thing at the end. May all activities in my body, speech, and mind help me create virtue today with sentient beings. Like that's, so I wanted to make sure everybody, whatever they were doing, there was somebody on their front lawn with their Trump signs out, right? And I might immediately have a view. Okay, you can probably tell who I'm not voting for. Okay, but you have a view and you can right away label them and not see them and be kind of like, but I'm like, there's a human being. So there they were and they see me and I'm dressed like this. I had my mala, I was reciting mantras as I was walking, my rosary. And they see this with the shapes that they ain't seen nothing like this in my neighborhood. They don't know what this is. It's a little scary for some people, but I live in fortunately, a friendly neighborhood, friendly area. And I was, and I saw them, and the thing is, and His Holiness says this, he smiles and it disarms people from hostility. And I saw the people and I see them looking at me and they're like, what is that? And then I smiled. And then when you wave, and they wave back, smiling, like that, then there's connection, healthy connection. That gives me an opportunity that we could talk, me and this other person, we could talk nicely together. I'm sure we could find many things we have in common. One of them is like, how do we get our grass to grow at certain times of the year, right? The typical householders' issues in this area, right? But that's what I mean is we need to find the common ground. And this is going to sound odd, but we have common ground sometimes with racists, with abusers. I know that's really hard to think about, but we do. We have Buddha nature. We have a seed of awakening. We're not Buddhas. It doesn't mean you're a Buddha. It means you have a seed or a potential that can become a Buddha. And racists have that. Our president has it. Child abusers have it. Murderers have Buddha nature. Terrorists have Buddha nature. Yep. And you go, well, are you kidding me? No, they have more veils of obscuration, perhaps obscuring them from the Buddha nature. More confusion. The more you study emptiness and think about bodhicitta and read about bodhicitta and develop those methods, right? You're removing those veils. You're peeling back the onion, the layers of the onion to get to that beautiful core of the Buddha nature. That's what we do when we practice. So the flip side then, sorry, Jennifer, then you said, so if I go out and try to see people in a better aspect, seeing God and everything, I'm trying to see them in their best light, not from the critical judgmental mind. And then you were saying the second part was?
But then when we recognize others' delusions and how do we deal with that?
And then the thing is, practically, we need to protect ourselves at times. Absolutely. So I'm always doing a little bit of both. Like I need to sometimes, like I really love teaching the classes because it puts me back in the Buddhist context. I really enjoyed, the thing I am missing is going, when I would travel, I'd be in Buddhist communities. So I'm missing that right now because that influence around me protected me. And every year there was a retreat with Rinpoche, at least once a year. So 1 month I was seated with 40 other nuns in that meditation hall. And across the aisle from us were like 20 monks. And then the whole rest of the room filled with people interested in Buddhism and some serious lay practitioners. So that had an influence on me. And I have to say during COVID right now, I miss that because I'm not in a Buddhist area. So protect your mind in that you go back and you study, you do your practice, and then you go back out and there you are. I know where you are, Midtown Manhattan. And you go out there on the street and it's like, wow. But at least maybe right now, Times Square, near where you live, there's less tourists, right? Okay, so at least it gives that a little sense of a little calmer when you go out. And maybe in the cities, you can get to a park once in a while and look at nature because it just gives your mind a little space. Watching the changing season. Beautiful in the Northeast now with the changing leaves and things. So again, we're doing a little bit both of that work of protecting. So then with social justice, I've mentioned this in other classes, if you are seeing something, if you're seeing something really negative, assess very quickly. Should I do something? Can I do something? But you want to do it from a good motivation. And then assess, can I do something? Sometimes you'll see something and there's nothing you can do, so you leave it. And sometimes you look and you go, yes, I think I can actually, tell that person they dropped something on the street, or help that person get across the street, or see that person's yelling at that person, maybe they need help. I'll just stand here and bear witness to make sure it's okay. There's certain things you can assess how to act rather than react. Reaction tends to come from the three poisons. But let the action come from bodhicitta. Does that help? A little bit like that. And Master Shantideva said that. He said you respond by ask yourself, and His Holiness often says this, quoting from Master Shantideva, can ask yourself what you can do. And again, I would add from a good motivation. And then if you can do something from that place, act. If you realize you really can't, you've assessed and there's some things can't do, let it go. Let it go. I could walk by, there's some people in my area that have put up Biden signs on their lawn, and some people posted in this network neighborhood group I have that somebody destroyed those signs on their front lawn. Okay, so I walked by yesterday and see somebody's Trump sign, right? And you can say, and a little bit of me goes, well, I wish I didn't have the sign up. Am I going to take their sign off their front lawn? So I can assess, what can I do? No, I'm not going to do that. It's their property. That's not a good thing to do, right? So I let it go and I walk by. No problem. Everybody's entitled to their view. That's the beauty of the United States. Everybody can express themselves. So having that freedom is important. There's something about, the supremacists, I don't agree with them at all, but the fact that people can express themselves, they need to express themselves in a more harmonious way. And being a supremacist isn't really harmonious, period. But that we do have that in the United States, a freedom of expression like that, freedom of speech. That. So, and Naga, no problem, you weren't interrupting. It's just, I wanted to get back to the thing. And Jennifer, thank you, has posted the 5 Buddha families chart. Thank you so much. So you can have save that link and then you can open that chart. Thank you so much. Let me go on again about the mantra. We're still at the mantra. Okay. So that's how we understand now. We've got the Om, the beginning, my body, speech, and mind, merged with wisdom and compassion, Hong, moving to enlightenment. Okay. So again, may my ordinary body, speech, and mind, Om, become transformed through the unified practice of compassionate method, Mani, the jewel, and wisdom, Padme, or Peme, the lotus, into the purified body, speech, and mind of unshakable enlightenment, Hong. So I just wanted to show you how these mantras work. And on some level, I have to say, the essence of all of them is generally the same. It's all going to be talking about this connection, merging of method and wisdom, like that. Let me talk about the union of method and wisdom. The union of method and wisdom. But first I want to discuss the different bodies of the Buddha. Let me go back to this for 1 second. Another aspect of Tantra. Four bodies of the Buddha. The seeds, and so this is what relates to the 4 empowerments. When you are taking an empowerment or initiation, and in highest yoga tantra, and I mentioned the vase empowerment, secret empowerment, wisdom empowerment, word empowerment, relate to these 4 bodies of the Buddha that you can develop, planting seeds. The seeds that are planted in a disciple's mind during the process of empowerment, this is from John Landau, ripen in his or her or their ability to engage successfully in the transformative practices that make up the tantric path. The most complete explanation of this transformation, it's given in terms of the empowerments received, okay, in highest yoga tantra. So I'm relating it now to highest yoga tantra. Empowerment ceremonies, as I mentioned, go into those 4 vase, secret, wisdom, and word empowerments. Each one has their own ritual practices, their own meditations, and during each one, seeds are planted that will ripen in the future experience of enlightenment in terms of 4 kayas, or bodies of a Buddha. Kaya meaning body, okay? So I mentioned before that accumulating the merit that you need like that can create the ability to develop the rupa kaya, the form body of the Buddha, and developing wisdom that helps you develop Dharmakaya, the truth body of the Buddha, okay, which is kind of hard to understand. What do they actually mean? And then we also talk about Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya. Okay, so what you're actually doing in tantric sadhanas, in the tantric practices, is again, we're taking an ordinary state and we're transforming it into something extraordinary. Okay, what you're doing in the beginning is dissolving everything into emptiness, and in a sense, arising, manifesting, okay, ordinary death. Ordinary death. Normally we die. A lot of people are terrified. They have issues, problems, confused, unable to do meditation because their mind's not as familiar, right? And then you die. And you don't really maximize the activity that could go on in that ability where the body, the grosser level's falling away. So what we do is we clam on, grasp onto the gross level. Okay, but it's on one level, it's a gross level, meaning it's a blatant level of your body and you know this is going to die because it's matter. But on another level, I'm just using a play on words. It's gross that this is what we're holding on to. It's kind of disgusting that I'm grasping onto this that I know is naturally going to pass away. And that's the biggest state of confusion at the death time. Okay. But there's a whole other level of subtle experiences going on. If I can practice with them now, which we do in Tantra, generation and completion stages, right? I might have more familiarity in my mind to use that opportunity. So we practice in tantric practice, first generation stage, dissolving, okay? This is the 3rd principle of the path, emptiness, dissolving everything, dissolving it into emptiness. Nothing inherently exists. Coming from, so that ordinary death, instead of just dying, I'm letting that whole dissolution of everything, Om Sabhava Shuddha Saradama Sabhava Shuddha Hom, that emptiness, that everything exists in this emptiness. Okay, I'm going to use that, transform that as the death experience, Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya manifests the truth body of the Buddha. From there, that wisdom that pervades everything, from which everything comes. From which everything comes. Okay, then we move through the sadhana and we manifest through the visualizations, through what it'll tell you in the practices specifically, arising as either a small body of light or an aspect of the deity that they call Sambhogakaya. Sambhogakaya, enjoyment body. What does that mean, enjoyment body? Well, for instance, it's a body of a Buddha, and you might say 1,000-armed Chenresig, Buddha of infinite compassion, and you might be doing a Chenresig practice where you call up to mind after the dissolution, after death, okay, I'm going to arise in an intermediate state body. So what actually happens after our actual death is you will go into a bardo. Bardo is a Sanskrit term for in between. In between. Okay, it's a transition from one life to the next life. And you have a bardo being's body. It's more subtle. It's not something everyone can see. You need certain realizations to see a bardo being's body. But that's the body we can take. It's a body that can go through walls, they say, and things like that. Our mind is still there with it. in its most subtle, in a more subtle experience. Okay? And what's propelling us in that bardo experience are the seeds in our consciousness, catapulting, dictating where we're going to go, karma, propelling us. For ordinary beings, uncontrollably. Highly realized beings, you can control. So what we're going to do in tantric practice is now I'm moving in, I want to manifest as that in-between state, taking the bardo and arising in a way I can benefit. How do I do that? Sambhogakaya, enjoyment body. So the Sambhogakaya body is not one that ordinary beings can experience or see. So for instance, I might take the, I might be the thousand-armed Chinrasig and manifest like that, but that's not something that everybody can see. So what I'm going to do is moving through the, and you could see this with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, that he can, he is said to be a manifestation of that Buddha. Okay, but we don't, when we see him, do you see that thousand-armed Chinrasig? I don't. Like that, I don't have pure enough karma. So then in our tantric practice, we're going to then evolve and come back through different visualization. And I'm going to use my awakening state, the birth process, because what comes after bardo is rebirth. You're taking rebirth. I don't want to do it in an ordinary way. I want to do it in an extraordinary way. And that means I'm going to manifest as Nirmanakaya. Nirmanakaya, emanation body. Emanation body. Okay, and that might be, if we're taking the case of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in the form that we see him, Tibetan monk, of somebody in their 80s looking a certain way. And that's a form we can connect with. But you're doing this in your own mind, planting these seeds to manifest Nirmanakaya in the future. That's a body you're going to go out with to benefit all living beings. So what we're doing again is taking, and they'll say, sometimes we'll do in practices, in tantric practices, and they'll say, meditate on the three kayas. Meditate, and they'll do this if we're doing the Lama Chopa, it'll say, meditate on the three kayas, dissolve that, and then meditate on the three kayas, and you'll go through in your own pace, but they give you, a few minutes, generally, to do it more quickly, and then arise as your deity, they'll say. Then you do the practice like that. Your enlightened being, as you are acting in the world like that. So again, when you're in your own practice, not in a group retreat, like Light of the Path, where we're doing the Lama Chopa in the morning, in a group retreat, you are, when you're doing your own practice, you can take more time to slow down the visions that are appearing when you do the Dharmakaya Dissolution. So what you're actualizing in that space are the subtle visions that happen at the death time that I discussed yesterday. Okay, you're doing the dissolution. This is on some of the classes I've taught on death, where I lead you through, at the end of a meditation on your own death, we do the dissolutions like that. And basically you start with, form body dissolving, mirage-like image. But what you do is very slowly go through those images, go through those visualizations. They're not separate from your mind. They are your mind. It's your entire experience. Slowly, so your mind can get familiar with those visions. Mirage-like image, smoke-filled room, sparks in a night sky, like fireflies in the night sky, a glow around a flickering candle about to go out. The white appearance is the more subtle consciousness is dissolving. White appearance, red increase, black near attainment, slowly. Each section, slowly meditating on each visualization, each vision, to soak your mind in it, to soak your mind. So maybe that will come up at the death time. Over and over, to the clear light, the mind in its most subtle experience, to the clear light, staying there as long as you can. And then if you like and you can practice, meditate on emptiness. So go back to this 4-part analysis in emptiness, okay? How does the I exist? Slowly find that object of negation. The I appears very concretely existing. I'm noticing this I appearing, Then that's part number 1. What's the object of negation? Find that I. Okay? And you can bring up again an angry experience you have, bring up again a painful experience, a shock, a great attachment, great fear. That I will come rearing up. Hold that in a portion of your mind. That's step number one. Point number one. Number two, it has to exist somewhere, that I. You feel it. How does it exist? Two possibilities. Within the body and mind, or separate from that. Again, one with the body and mind, or separate from that. Only possibilities. Step number three. This is the longest step, longest point of the emptiness meditation. Go searching for the I in the body and mind. That's where you might want to use my meditation. Taking you through, you have to analyze very significantly every part of your body and mind. Okay? Is there something that is one, like there's only one I that you're bringing up? So if you say it's your heart, well, the heart has parts. So which part of the heart is the I? Okay, and you want to say it's the center of the aorta is your I. Well, even the center of the aorta has parts. Go all the way down to a molecular level. Which cell is the I? Which cell of the aorta is the I? Even the cell has parts and parts and parts. Everything can be further broken down. Einstein knew this. Everything could be further broken down. Can you ever find that inherently existing construct? There's nothing there. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Okay? So when you get to that space, step number three, if you can get to the absence, okay, and maybe you say, well, wait a minute. I'm not finding the I in my body or mind. I'm not finding the I in my body or mind. I've analyzed. I've gone to mental consciousness. That's my I. A lot of people get stuck there. That's my I. What's mental consciousness? Well, it's moments of mind. There's a present moment right now. And you go, okay, I know, I heard you say the present moment has a beginning, middle, and end. I think it's the middle of the present moment of the mind. Well, the middle of the present moment of the mind also has a beginning, middle, and an end. You say it's the middle of that has a beginning, middle, and an end. And a beginning, middle, and an end, and a beginning, middle, and an end. Can't find the one inherent nature of it. Doesn't exist at all. Everything can be further broken down. Can't find inherent fundamental building block that exists concretely like that. So slowly, you don't find it in the body or mind. You go, maybe it's outside. Maybe it's outside of me. Dissolve, as they do in the emptiness meditation and how to meditate. Just slowly dissolve your body and mind. Okay. Is it a little scary? Can be. It's a good sign. Okay. And when it's dissolved, okay, there's no I there. So when you come to that absence, if you come to the absence, the not finding, it's a negation emptiness. It's not an affirmation. It's not the space-like nature of your mind. Okay? Even though they say space-like emptiness, that's different. Okay? It's an absence. It's a not finding. It's a negation, something you're not going to find. Then you want to stay there as long as you can, applying concentration, your shine to that, to deepen the experience. It will fade and the I will come back up, and then you analyze more quickly to get back to the absence. That's how we do emptiness meditation. So I'm just briefly taking you through that because it's so important. So again, you can listen, go through the emptiness meditation I posted, read Lama Zopa Rinpoche's talks on it, listen to his meditations from the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. So again, and to go back to the bodies of the Buddha, I talked about Rupakaya, form bodies, okay? And they're divided into two classifications, emanation and enjoyment bodies, okay? According to the two types of beings. Emanation, enjoyment bodies would be Arya beings, those who've had a direct perception of emptiness. Okay. Emanation bodies can be for non-Arya beings. Relatively subtle and gross types of bodies that benefit. Okay. And then Dharmakaya, the truth body, we sometimes divide into two. And this gets more, they'll talk about Swabhavakaya, nature body, and it refers to the emptiness, the empty nature of Dharmakaya, in a sense. So sometimes they'll divide Dharmakaya into Jnana Dharmakaya, wisdom truth body, okay, or kind of nature truth body. And Dharmakaya, I'd say, the enlightened beings, unobstructed wisdom and compassion. So the Buddha mind itself, and Swabhavakaya, the emptiness of that enlightened mind. Let's see if I have one more thing I want to talk about. Okay, now I want to go on to uncommon preliminaries. We talked about common preliminaries, what you need to take tantric initiation or empowerment and practice. We've already discussed the 3 principles of the path to some degree. Then there's uncommon preliminaries that you need, okay? To begin, and I've mentioned some of this before, you need to receive an empowerment, enabling us to engage in practices related to a specific meditational deity. And so Tibetan word for empowerment is Wang, W-A-N-G, Wang. There will be sometimes something called a Jainang in Tibetan. Jainang is more subsequent permission. And it really makes me miss Kirti Sencha Rinpoche, the Lama I traveled with, who is such an amazing being. His attendant, Alak in Amdo dialect also means Rinpoche. They were both Rinpoches, but Alak was really more the attendant. Some people called him Alak Rinpoche. He was a formidable being, an amazing friend, and a very, very strong personality. He was a little bit older than me and from Eastern Tibet. And he learned a little bit of English. And so he learned Jainang, and the centers would say, is it a Wang or is it a Jainang? Because there were different things they needed to prepare, different amounts of time it would take. A Wang takes much longer, a full empowerment. It also depends on the levels of the Wang, the levels of the Jainang, and Jainang means subsequent permission. So if you take a Jainang, it's more like a blessing. And the blessing, and if the mantra is repeated, which it normally is by the teacher, by the guru, it gives you a lung of that mantra, the wind of that mantra. And a lung is kind of an oral transmission, and it's more powerful for you once you can recite that mantra then. So once you have the lung and you hear the mantra from their lips to your ears, especially in person or at a live stream, it's more powerful for you then when you say the mantra like that. And if you take the blessing as well, subsequent permission, then even if you're engaging in that practice and visualizing the deity on your crown, it's more powerful for you and you have more blessings. So he learned how to say subsequent permission with his accent and things, and he learned it. And I don't know if he really understood the meaning, but he knew the word in Tibetan, and Jainang, he understood, So then he'd look at me and he'd go, subsequent permission, in his Tibetan, it was very sweet. I so miss them. So again, Wang literally meaning power, which is why we've been referring to the ceremony often as which seeds of successful practice are planted in our mind as an empowerment. It empowers you. That's probably a little bit more accurate than initiation. But the word has been translated also as initiation. And when I got into this, it was always about taking initiations. Let's look at this for a moment. Is if it's initiation, sometimes for us it conjures up kind of the stuff with college students going through, hazing rituals to be initiated into the fraternity or something. So that's not the kind of thing it is. So some people don't like to use the word initiation. It's really about granting you the power in a positive way, in a very compassionate way, to get closer to this meditational deity. So I just wanted to explain that with empowerments. Okay, so again, the uncommon preliminaries are, for our tantric practice to be the real thing, it has to be based on emptiness yoga, which enables us to abandon all ordinary appearances, and guru yoga, through which we receive the inspiration from and establish our ultimate identity with the guru Buddha. That's why it's so important. And in summary, receiving tantric empowerment from a qualified tantric guru, master, or vajra guru, whatever you want to call them. This is the uncommon preliminaries: that, receiving the empowerment, practicing guru yoga, keeping our various commitments purely, are the uncommon preliminaries for tantric practice. So again, receiving tantric empowerment from a qualified person, practicing guru yoga, which is going to indicate emptiness, and keeping various commitments purely. So the tantric vows, learning what they are, keeping them purely. Okay, I want to talk now about how Tantra becomes faster and the real distinction. Okay. As many of you know, in the 3 principles of the path, you read the teachings about Bodhichitta. There's the 7-point cause and effect method to develop Bodhichitta. There's also equalizing and exchanging self with others, the more secret method, but they're both taught in the Lam Rim, both practiced in the Lam Rim, like that. You can meditate on them to receive, to develop unconceived realizations, uncontrived realizations of the Lam Rim. And then we also have emptiness teachings. And I just took you through briefly the 4 parts or the 4 points of a traditional emptiness meditation and how we would do that. But alongside, you want to read about emptiness again in the simpler texts, simpler books, to have a deeper understanding intellectually. So that will help the meditation. They both help each other. So wisdom without method is dry. The two have to be unified, okay? And the way Tantra understands and accomplishes this unification is much more profound than the way this happens in the Sutrayana approach of the Lam Rim. And that's why Tantra is said to be so swift and so powerful. So first looking at Sutra, how does it work, okay? The compassionate method and wisdom aspects of the path support one another. They support one another. So basically, you come into, you might sit down in a meditation session and you might focus on investigating the nature of the self. You're doing a little emptiness practice, okay? And you set your motivation, why do I want to do the meditation? And looking at the own faults in your own mind and how other beings, you'd really like to help other beings. And you develop this altruistic motivation, compassionate bodhicitta. You remind yourself, okay, again, that we're surrounded by countless suffering beings like that. And you've got this mind that's kind of dealing with this level of compassion, developing this level of compassion. And you further realize, in order to attain, I'd really like to be enlightened. I'd really like, if I'm enlightened, I can work for all of them perfectly. And then you realize, in order to attain this enlightenment, I have to get rid of all of these hallucinations and misconceptions in my mind. In this way, compassionate bodhicitta, the method aspect of the path, becomes a motivational force behind meditating on emptiness, on the non-inherent existence of the I. Okay, but first, I've got the bodhicitta first happening, and that motivates me. And then I start cultivating the investigation of the I, separate. Okay, but they support each other. Okay, and I get into analyzing the I. And I see that I start understanding, the I, and I'll meditate very effectively on that. Okay, So what is the role of compassionate method while this investigation and the resulting experience of emptiness are taking place? During the meditation itself on emptiness, compassionate method's really not playing any role at all, okay? It simply set up our meditation at the beginning, okay? But once you're actually in the wisdom meditation, you don't stop and think, oh, I've got to suddenly generate compassion for all beings. That's not happening. You're staying in the emptiness meditation, okay? I started with a good motivation. There's my method, but now I'm in the wisdom part. Remembering the kindness of others and wishing to repay is unnecessary when you're meditating on emptiness in the sutra approach. It's actually counterproductive to get your mind off the emptiness, off the investigation, off the absence you may find, okay? It could actually be a distraction. So you're using one to support the other though. So if you look at your experience in this whole session, if you got Bodhichitta, and then I'm going to do some emptiness meditation, we can see that the compassionate motivation that we generated at the beginning serves as support for the wisdom meditation that followed, okay? And then the wisdom meditation, okay, when you get to a point and you realize how you're suffering, and you get to this absence, and you come out of that meditation, and everything goes back to kind of concrete nature. But then you realize, because it goes back to concrete nature, how much you suffer because of that. And then you think of all living beings. And I think, how can I not have compassion for them? We're all lost in this as ordinary beings. So again, that wisdom meditation and what that does for your mind and the imprints it leaves becomes a huge support of my growing compassion in my heart for all beings, because they don't realize emptiness. Okay, so the key point to remember here is, in the sutra system, method and wisdom are practiced sequentially, one after another, one after another. And if we look at the different activities we engage in along the sutra path to enlightenment, you see many examples of method and wisdom serving as supports for one another. Let me quote John Landau. Method sets the stage for wisdom, and wisdom sets the stage for method. That's the union of method and wisdom from the Sutrayana point of view. This union is symbolized in different ways in Buddhist art, etc., in the visualization of Shakyamuni Buddha that we did yesterday. Okay? The moon cushion again, representing compassionate method, bodhicitta. The sun represents insightful wisdom, emptiness. Okay? So sometimes we see a tantric deity holding various implements. Vajrasattva holds a vajra and a bell crossed at his heart, traditionally. Vajra is always held in the right hand, a power symbol comparable to a thunderbolt. Okay? Indestructible nature of bodhicitta, of compassion. The bell is held in the right hand. The left hand, the left representing the mother, the female, the wisdom from that. Why is the perfection of wisdom that is manifested as a deity in a female form, the prajnaparamita? Perfection of wisdom is a female emanation that you see. So the bell stands for emptiness. And so they're always held together to remind you of method and wisdom. Many of the tantric deities are holding them. Tantric practitioners are allowed to get a bell and dorje. Dorje is simply vajra in Tibetan. A bell and dorje, you have those, and as a tantric practitioner, you're then allowed to use them. You're not, unless you've had a tantric empowerment of any level, before you've had a tantric empowerment of any level, you're not really allowed to use the bell and dorje. You can have them, but you're not really supposed to use them. Once you even get a Kriya Tantra empowerment, you are then actually with Kriya Tantra expected to use them in a nungne. You have an obligation to use them. Because again, they're very focused. Kriya Tantra practices, like nungne, fasting retreat, are very focused on the external experiences. So we want to use that bell and dorje, and you have permission to do it once you've had that empowerment into even the lowest level of Tantra. But that's why you see them in the tantric deities. Okay, and then if we see the figures in sexual union in the Tibetan Tankas, the male generally represents method and the female generally represents wisdom, like that. Let's talk about the union of method and wisdom in Tantra. The union of method. This is where it really gets the real essence here, okay? A solid, limited sense of ourself dissolves when we're doing tantric practice. I mentioned the Dharmakaya meditation. The very beginning, after the setup prayers, meaning Refuge and Bodhichitta, and making some offerings, and you always have those in the beginning, like that. And then there's a dissolution, emptiness, okay? We taste our mind's spacious potential, okay? And in this context, spacious doesn't indicate nothingness, doesn't indicate that we don't exist. It indicates that the fictitious beliefs trap us in a limited and authentic view. A sense of separate selfhood. We dissolve all that in Tantra practice, okay? Because all such fictions, all such inauthentic views are removed, the space like emptiness, okay, has room for us to experience our mind's highest potential. Ordinarily, we're bound so tightly with a limited concept of who we are, you can't experience spaciousness. Okay, that's why I like to do that meditation beginning of just give yourself some space. That's why I always relax when I first start meditating. I don't just jump down on the cushion and launch into the practice. Give yourself some time to relax. And so we must therefore train dissolving the misconceptions, letting go of our limited view, opening up to our highest potential. Okay. And then through various forms of training the meditator directly, we can experience the empty nature of the I or the self. At that point, nothing but this emptiness, this absence, appears to the mind of the meditator. All conventional appearances, this is in Tantra, disappear. The mind having this realization, okay, this wisdom consciousness, for instance, is identified with Dharmakaya, truth body of the Buddha that I mentioned before. It's the very same mind that arises as Rupakaya, the form body of the meditational deity. Has that aspect, is able to, empowered to do that. At this point, we're not holding on to our ordinary identity any longer. We're not pretending to be the deity. Instead, it's the wisdom consciousness from which everything comes. It's the wisdom consciousness, you know, and this comes, let me stop for a moment. This comes after a lot of study, understanding of emptiness, and meditating on emptiness. So I'm not just pretending everything, you know, most people just in the tantric things, they say, Om Sabhava Shuddha Saradhamma Sabhava Shuddha Home, and they don't even reflect on emptiness. But we're hoping that that mantra trips the mind into like, oh, right, I've had some seeds planted, but it's nice to pause there. And the next line usually in English translated is, everything is empty. Everything is emptiness only. So lines like that to remind, like, that's where it has to come from. That's where it has to come from. I don't just kind of arise ordinarily and then think I'm a deity and impute that on top. Again, everything comes from the wisdom, consciousness, the emptiness, appearing as the deity. So again, with the sense, when the sense of the self resurfaces, it's to this exalted form body, the label I is applied. To speak somewhat loosely, because we've made contact with our mind's deepest potential, we've dissolved our ordinary sense of self in the space of emptiness. We're able to identify ourselves as the deity with firm conviction. This is the divine pride with clear appearance. I've let go of the hallucinated appearances. I've let go of that. That's not happening now. That I know doesn't exist. Therefore, I can be this deity with firm conviction. We see ourselves as having the deity's body of light, which is blissful in nature, possesses all the attributes of enlightenment. And this is how we visualize ourselves in tantric practice. This is how we appear to our own mind This is how we feel. We're not pretending. We're really trying to merge our minds with this. Again, only with proper empowerment. Okay? And then the convincing appearance of ourself as the deity is the method aspect of the path. Okay? The understanding that the deity lacks self-existence is the wisdom aspect. Because it is one and the same moment of consciousness that both perceives this Buddha body and comprehends its empty nature, our practice has become a simultaneous expression of both method and wisdom. Okay, so that's the distinction, is you're actualizing method and wisdom at the same moment. They're interacted, fused at the same moment, not one happening subsequently after another, sequentially. So the way we practice, from the practice of the three bodies that I mentioned, Dharmakaya, truth body, taking the actual death as the Dharmakaya, and then taking the actual intermediate state as the Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body, and then moving into that form, taking the actual rebirth as the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body. We might get the impression the various bodies of a Buddha are achieved in a sequential order. The first one attains, as I mentioned, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and then Nirmanakaya. But even though the meditative process follows a sequential order, in the final enlightened experience itself, all the bodies of a Buddha are attained simultaneously. His Holiness the Dalai Lama points out, because a Buddha's Dharmakaya, the truth body, Rupakaya, form body, are simultaneous. They must arise from causes that are themselves simultaneous. Sutra doesn't provide that. Unified causes doesn't provide that. The sutra path, method, and wisdom support each other. They're not practiced at the same time. But in Tantra, Tantra does contain powerful methods for training in method and wisdom in one and the same moment of consciousness. And that's its uniqueness and its power and why it is the quickest path to enlightenment. Okay, let's see if there's one last thing, and then I was going to take some questions. Any questions?
Hi, Venerable Amy. I've got a question. I wonder if you're able to compare any of tantric practice, which to me really stuck as the resultant path, to say Dzogchen on the one hand, which I believe is also a practice or the idea of you're already enlightened or some instant realization. And then I think Mahamudra is something along the same lines, and I've even heard it said as we move into egolessness, but then from egolessness we re-embrace the ego when we live from there. And I'm probably jumbling some concepts, but I wonder if you could. It just rings some bells, and I was wondering if you could compare your experience with those traditions.
Sure, I've had teachings on both of them, and I highly recommend a book. Once you've had Tantric Empowerment, I think you can read the introduction from Alex Berzin without Tantric Empowerment, but you can't read the book. And it's called, it's a favorite book, The Gelug Kagyu Tradition of Mahamudra. The Gelug Kagyu Tradition of Mahamudra. Mahamudra is often the kind of great seal and meditating on the nature, the emptiness of the nature of the mind, is usually from the Kagyu tradition. And the emptiness is slightly different in the Gelugpa tradition, but not to confuse people. Dzogchen is, I believe, more, I've had some teachings on Dzogchen, is more of higher level practice of the Nyingma tradition, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's
usually taught in the Nyingma tradition. So each of the traditions has their kind of highest level of practice. I am speaking from the Tibetan Gelugpa tradition, mostly Lama Tsongkhapa teachings, and also taught to me by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and some other teachers. So I don't know enough about the Dzogchen to speak about it. And the retreat I did was years ago, and the teachings I had was years ago. I need to kind of read up more on that. But there is a thing of enlightenment, is some of it's very, very similar to manifesting the empty state of mind in a highest level of awakening and awareness, and using that awareness. And it's also nice with the Gelug Kagyu tradition of Mahamudra, is really exploring the nature of mind and the emptiness of that as well. You can attain kind of high levels. I'm more talking with Tantra of we're a little bit more in the Guru Yoga practice of manifesting as a deity. So those are often dealing with more of also the nature of the mind itself, from my experience of those practices. But unfortunately, I don't know as much about to comment on it right now. So it's a good question. And I want to, sorry, I don't have all the answers for that, unless anybody else knows to comment. But again, higher level practices on the nature of the awakened mind, very powerful. Actually, I remember the Dzogchen retreat. His Holiness gave teachings on that years ago. I think it was, I don't know, they made it into a book, 1988 or something. And I was at those teachings in San Jose, and Sogyo Rinpoche translated. So it was a great translation, and he had requested His Holiness for his lineage to teach it. And due to my density, I can't remember all that. I have to study again. And so if Faisha has a question, what's more important when practicing, if you're struggling with doing both simultaneously, the visualization or the mantra recitations? Okay, so this is what you do. Am I pronouncing your name right, Faisha? Sorry if I'm not.
You are, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. How's it going in Dubai?
It's going good. It's late, but it's good.
How long is your wait?
I'm sorry?
How long is your wait for your flight?
I don't know. I'm waiting to get permission from the Australian government because their borders are closed.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I'm just hanging out until they say I can come in.
Oh my goodness. Well, best of luck to you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Is that where you're based, Australia?
No, I'm based in the United States, but I just took a year off and I was headed to Australia, and then this whole thing happened. So now I'm kind of in limbo for a while.
How long have you been in Dubai?
2 months.
Oh my goodness. And where from the States were you living?
Maryland.
Okay, great. Not so far. When you come back, are you coming back to Maryland, maybe?
At some point in time, yes.
Okay, come visit.
I will.
Okay, so what you're doing is ultimately you're memorizing a mantra. If you're doing a tantric deity, some of the mantras, I have to say, some are super easy. Om Mani Padme Hum, very easy. However, in Nungne, there's a long Chenrezig mantra, not easy. Okay? Over time, by reciting it out loud, you will memorize it. The Vajrasattva mantra, some of you have memorized. You know in the beginning how difficult that was for you. Okay? There's some practices, if you do a Yamantaka retreat, you have many mantras to recite. Okay? And slowly you'll start to memorize them. And so what happens is eventually you memorize the mantra while you're doing the visualization, and then the mantra is in the background, resonating in your subtle energy system, happening, just going on, going on, going on. And then you're really focused on the visualization as much as you can. And then what I do notice is if you're in a longer retreat of several months or a few years, doing a deity retreat, the mantra picks up a certain resonance and you find it just happening all the time. And you're waking up with it. You're going to sleep. It's in your dreams. So you eventually want to have it where it's a kind of second nature like that, of that resonance that's working on that subtle energy system. And then you can spend more time focusing on the visualizations, if that helps.
That did, thank you.
Okay, what I'd like to do in I'd like to go back to our Shakyamuni Buddha practice that we did yesterday. And just now, with some of the information you know, again, this is a simple practice, but let's review and just see, just notice what has changed in your mind, if anything. Just notice how any differences in doing it today versus doing it yesterday. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger, but can you see that on your screens? Okay, I'm going to make this bigger. And here we have our lovely Buddha. So once again, take a moment and find a comfortable position. And this is also setting up ways for you to practice. You don't just launch in and, I go for Refuge and tell them, you don't start a practice like that. You take a few breaths, make sure you're in the right posture. This is meditation time. You're telling your mind, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to slowly, we've just been having a lot of lecture talk like that. So now, slowly, I'm going to get into this practice. There's my image. I'd like to project in the space in front of me. And before you close your eyes, you can just look at that image. And when I go into the text, we can look at that, but you're going to imagine that image in the space in front, radiant golden being, maybe 6 inches in height, a few feet in front of you, slightly higher than the level of your forehead, facing you. And look at the lotus, the sun and the moon cushions. I know the sun's a little hard to see, but now you know what they represent. And just think about those for a minute. Think about those common preliminaries. Renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness. It's my foundation. You see the Buddha sitting on it. It's his foundation of his enlightenment. They're not separate from in another part of the picture. You can imagine him on a radiant golden throne, supported by snow lions, 2 in each corner. He's fearless. He's all-knowing. Because he's all-knowing, he can be fearless. He's draped in the beautiful saffron robes. Left hand is holding the begging bowl filled with the 4 nectars. Right hand is in the earth touching mudra, the middle finger touching the moon cushion. Sign of enlightenment. The eyes lightly closed or slightly opened in meditative absorption, as well as seeing all living beings he wants to help. Just feel as if he's really there. And while you're doing this, I want to go get one picture for you before we part. Excuse me 1 minute. So now we're going to go on to the practice, and you can always, when you start, again, check up on your motivation and make sure the mind's in the right space. Make sure the body's relaxed. Think about the Buddha is just here, and think that he says, daughter, son, being of the lineage, if you want to be liberated from suffering, from all the suffering of samsara, I will guide you. Here we come to our first part of the practice, Refuge and Bodhichitta. You can see on your screen. Thinking, reaching out with your heart, is this somebody you could connect with to protect you from more suffering, do you think? If you feel that in your heart, or if you feel like you want to join us, we can recite Refuge and Bodhichitta 3 times, really thinking of this prayer, that I take refuge to avoid more suffering so that I can get enlightened and open my heart to all beings and help them and lead them to enlightenment as well. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Community. From the merits I create by practicing giving and other perfections, may I become Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Community. From the merits I create by practicing giving and other perfections, may I become Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Community. From the merits I create by practicing giving and other perfections, may I become Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. Just to make sure my motivation is in the right place, special bodhicitta. In particular, I must achieve enlightenment quickly in order to free all the numberless kind mother sentient beings from the unimaginable oceans of samsaric suffering and causes of suffering and lead them to peerless full enlightenment. Therefore, I'm going to do this practice of Shakyamuni Buddha. The 7 limbs. Let's think about what each line represents as we recite this slowly. Respectfully, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I confess all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time and rejoice in the virtuous actions of all ordinary and noble beings. Please, Buddha, remain as our guide until samsara ends and turn the wheel of Dharma for all living beings. Through the merits created by myself and others, may the 2 bodhicittas ripen and may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. So when it says the 2 bodhicittas, we have relative bodhicitta we've been speaking about, this enlightened attitude represented by the moon cushion method, okay? Getting enlightened to benefit all living beings, cherishing others more than yourself, that bodhicitta. Then there's ultimate bodhicitta. That refers to emptiness. So sometimes they call them the 2 bodhicittas, and they will sometimes refer to emptiness as ultimate bodhicitta. The 4 immeasurables, let's send this out to the universe. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free of hatred and attachment. May they abide in equanimity. I myself will cause them to abide in equanimity. Please, Guru Buddha, grant me blessings to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the cause of happiness. May they have happiness and its cause. I shall cause them to have these. Please, Guru Buddha, grant me blessings to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free of suffering and its cause. May they be free of suffering and its cause. I myself will free them from suffering and its cause. Please, Guru Buddha, grant me blessings to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never separated from the happiness of higher rebirth and liberation. May they never be separated from these. I myself will cause them never to be separated from these. Please, Guru Buddha, grant me blessings to be able to do this. Mandala offering. By the virtue of offering to you, assembly of Buddhas visualized before me, this mandala built on a base, resplendent with flowers, saffron water and incense, adorned with Mount Meru and the 4 continents, as well as the sun and the moon, may all sentient beings share in its good effects. the objects of my attachment, aversion, and ignorance, friends, enemies, strangers, my body, wealth, and enjoyments. I offer these without any sense of loss. Please accept them with pleasure and bless me and others to be free from the 3 poisonous attitudes. Visualizing the most incredible world systems you can. Idam Guru Rana Mendalakam Niradayami. Here's our request. One type of request, heartfelt. Really make this from your heart. If you feel this, I prostrate and go for refuge to the Guru and 3 precious gems. Please bless my mind. I'm requesting you to immediately pacify all the wrong conceptions, from incorrect devotion to the Guru up to the subtle dual view of the white, red, and dark visions that exists in my mind and the minds of all mother sentient beings. I'm requesting you to immediately generate all the right realizations from Guru devotion up to enlightenment in my mind and the minds of all mother sentient beings. I'm requesting you to pacify all outer and inner obstacles to actualizing the entire graduated path to enlightenment in my mind and the minds of all mother sentient beings. So now imagine from Buddha Shakyamuni's heart, and you can add any other requests you have right now from your heart. Something more extraordinary on the Dharma path that you need right now. Something perhaps bigger for our planet. And with the mantra recitation, imagine from Shakyamuni Buddha's heart in the space in front of you, again, come purifying light rays of whatever color represents that to you, streaming over to you. You can have it entering your forehead, throat, heart, navel, or sexual organs, or just entering you through your forehead and washing out all disease, all imbalances of body and mind, spirit harms, negative karma, completely washing out of you through all the lower openings of your body, completely gone, completely purified as we recite the mantra here at the top of the page. I'll do a little bit of the chanting of it first, and then we can recite. As best as you can, try to keep this visualization going. Taya tao mune mune maha mune soha. 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 And now visualize golden light rays coming from the Buddha's heart, entering your 5 places or your 3 places, your forehead, throat, and heart, or just your forehead, granting you all the blessings and realizations of his holy body, speech, and mind. Granting you an ability to realize emptiness in this life, or to develop a deeper understanding of emptiness, granting you an ability to be able to take tantric empowerment in the future and to find a qualified tantric person with which to do that. Taya domani mani mamani. Taya ta om mune mune maha mune soha. Just feel you've definitely purified something and received some blessings. And the Buddha in the space in front slowly dissolves from the edges of that visualization, along with the snow lions, the jeweled throne, the lotus, sun, and moon discs, into a radiant drop of light. And imagine that drop melting into your crown. Just feel all the blessings from Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. And then imagine now your own body from those blessings emanating from your heart. Go out all these loving light rays. And sometimes we can do the visualization of all the suffering beings around us. And there's certain ways you can set up that configuration. And all these rays go out and touch all of those beings, all the beings all around the planet, melting into them, and imagine them turning in to Shakyamuni Buddha. Just rejoice. And dedicating the merit. So looking at these dedication prayers, we can recite together. And I'd like to thank you so much for all of your fine energy, incredible effort for showing up. Thank you to Shanti Davis Center, Jennifer, everyone for hosting, and all the beings suffering from COVID around the planet. May they be released immediately from that illness and recover fully, swiftly. And for all the beings suffering around the planet from other illnesses and diseases, may they recover immediately. May our centers flourish, especially Shanti Davis Center, and be harmonious. May there be more enlightened leadership in our countries in the future, creating more harmony and health on the planet. Due to all my own merits of the 3 times and the merits of all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and sentient beings, may the altruistic wish to achieve enlightenment be generated in my mind and in the mind of all sentient beings without delay for even 1 second. May that which has been generated be increased. May the supreme jewel Bodhichitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praise is the best by the victorious ones thus gone of the 3 times, so I might perform good works. And I'd like to do the, Jennifer, if you can share the long life prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And again, I really dedicate to those of you looking for a teacher that you can find the right teacher, and those of you wanting to engage in Tantra practice in the future that you can find the right teacher, get the initiations that you would like, and be able to do those retreats. That's the purpose of getting the empowerments, to do the retreats, to create a stronger and closer connection for you with those deities, those aspects of the enlightened mind and to be able to synthesize that simultaneous method and wisdom experience in your mind, and to have that automatically manifest in enlightenment. For His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. I'd like to show you, before we part, this is the Sandalwood. This is the Sandalwood Buddha I got to see in Buryatia. Buryatia is eastern Russia, just north of Mongolia. And it's in a city called Ulan-Ude. It's outside Ulan-Ude, which is the capital of Buryatia. Ulan-Ude is a 7-hour car ride north of Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, but this is actually Russia. So I went to see this Buddha with Kirti Senchab Rinpoche. I had the amazing, amazing, great fortune in this life with Lama Zopa Rinpoche's permission and blessings. And if you look closely, what happens is it looks like it's looking right at you, if you can see. As you get closer, the eyes are really like this, up in the head. So there's this blissful aspect. This is supposed to be the first image of the Buddha ever made. There's a longer story about it. I'll have to continue at another time. But it's one of my favorite images that, yeah, it's amazing. I hope you can visit it one day. So let me just see if there's any last... So I think in the readings there was something about Hindu and Buddhism, just talking about because, and I'll be honest with you, because of this idea about emptiness, Hinduism has the Atman, the soul that inherently exists. So it's quite different than emptiness. And that's what I was just mentioning, is these teachings talk about that in some of the readings for this course that are posted in the resources. Okay, so you can find it there. But it does talk about that idea of emptiness, in a sense, being more profound and more helpful to cut our suffering and get us to enlightenment than any concrete notion of something existing. Not saying one religion's better than the other or anything, but when it really comes down to how to get enlightened and how to free ourselves, emptiness seems to be pretty key to that. So thank you so much for joining. We're out of time. I hope this has been helpful, and so great to see all of you. And thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this. I hope it's been useful for you. I hope we can meet again at other teachings. If you're interested in other stuff that I'm doing, again, please check up on my website. I'm just posting right here. Right there. And the other thing on my website, if you're interested, I'm leading a pilgrimage to Laudo. We postponed it this year. It's supposed to be April 26th to May 14th. We are trekking in Nepal. Claire, you're going, right? My own personal little wish that you all go, okay? Just nudging her, but Sumati's may be going. Great. Elizabeth had gone. Elizabeth is with us. But basically, it's a trek in Nepal. We're trekking. We have a day in Kathmandu. I show you Kopan Nunnery. We'll stay there. Kopan Monastery. A few of my little off the beaten temples in Kathmandu, in the tourist section of Kathmandu. Then we fly up to the mountains. It'll be the flight of your life. Okay. And, but we do trek, and then we go to Laudo and we do a 3-day retreat there of the Lam Rim. And Rinpoche has a small holy cave at Laudo we can meditate in and sit there. We do some day trips from there. And it's really, really special. We don't know, we're checking with COVID. We're only gonna go if it's safe. If not, we'll postpone and we'll go later. But you can sign up now and all the information is on my website. So I hope you might consider or think of joining. Real once in a lifetime experience. Again, I wish you all the best.
Venerable Amy, could I just make a few announcements, if that's
Please.
okay?
Please do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for teaching us. That was so wonderful to
Thank
spend
you for
time with
your wonderful
Anthony,
support.
everyone. And thank you everyone for attending. So fabulous to share this energy together. I did post a link earlier. I'll just post it again. If you'd like to make an offering to Venerable Amy, you can do so using that link. Using the dana receipt for the teachers, we do, for the teachings, we do make an offering, but this is also additional, and we really strongly encourage it for those who can, because the monastics do depend on the lay people to survive and be supported, and it's a very harmonious, interdependent relationship, and so it's always so meritorious, and that's the cause of our own prosperity and the cause of our ability to receive Dharma teachings in the future, which is why we always encourage it. And I did wish to just highlight a couple of things that might be helpful. One is, I'm just going to post it here, but all the different resources that we've been sharing are now compiled on the web page for this course. So there's the link. We are going to take that off of our homepage soon. So if you want to copy and paste that, you'll receive the links for all the PDFs and the meditations and things that we looked at, including the recording for the Emptiness Meditation, Venerable, that you shared. So that's now available. And also just to share a little bit more about a reminder of upcoming events. So Venerable Amy will lead the Tara Puja on October 24th. It's a great way to continue with a little taste of tantric practice, even though we don't have an empowerment, we don't need it.
And for the election, join us, please. We need help. It's better to
really.
with the group. It's better to practice in a group.
Really.
Thank you. And then Lama Tsongkhapa Day, very meritorious day, December 10th, not on our website yet, but she will be leading Lama Chopa, which Venerable Amy has discussed. So it's a great way to practice. And actually John Landau has confirmed, where we're doing his meditations and reviewing his teachings, that he's going to be doing the New Year's retreat and teaching for us. Probably Vajrasattva, maybe something else. Good way to
One of my favorite teachers. Fantastic. Old friend and a brilliant teacher.
Thank you. And then a couple of other teachings. Venerable Children is going to help us deal with our minds in the midst of political turmoil this Wednesday at 7 p.m. And also Venerable George Chernoff. Venerable Amy, I don't know if you've,
Yeah, he's an old friend. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. So he's going to be teaching. He's new to our community, but from everything I've heard, he was ordained, I think, by the senior and junior tutors of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and just so amazing.
And both children, Thupten children, who started Sravasti Abbey in Washington, fantastic. They're both very senior students, as well as John Landau. John Landau is a layperson. Venerable Thupten children and George Chernoff, Venerable George, are ordained. They were both ordained years and years ago. And Venerable Thupten children, very active, practical teachings, wonderful teacher. Venerable George, very scholastic, academic, and intellectual. So perfect teachings that really get, you're getting two different, it's so nice with Shantideva because they have such an array, a variety of all these different teachers. So you really get exposed and you come at your practice from different angles. So I really recommend.
Thank you. And I see, Cynthia, hopefully we'll get your question resolved soon. But just want to thank you, Venerable Amy, once again for teaching, for everyone for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please be well.
Thanks so much, Venerable Amy. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Venerable Amy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Shantideva. Bye.
Bye, Amy.
Nobody wants to go.